Did you know that a woman killed an invading army general with a single strike of a tent peg through the head? Well, today we will talk about the only woman who has ever done this and how she did it, so stay tuned for the full video. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do so that you can be notified when I post new videos. In today's video, we will look at a story of a brave woman who killed Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army who had been terrorizing God's people, the Israelites, with a simple tent peg through the head. The story of Jael, who is not well known, is told in Judges chapter 4, verses 17 to 22. She was the wife of Heber the Kenite and lived in a tent near the banks of the river Kishon in the lower Galilee region of northern Israel. At that time, Israel was under the oppression of the Canaanites, and they cried out to God for deliverance. God raised up a judge named Deborah, who led Israel to victory over their oppressors. But Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army, managed to escape. Sisera was afraid because he heard that Deborah was pursuing him. And when his chariot approached Jael's tent, he decided to seek refuge there. When Jael saw Sisera approaching her tent, she invited him in and gave him milk to drink. But she knew that God had delivered him into her hands. So while Sisera was sleeping under the shade of her tent, Jael took a hammer and drove a tent peg into his temple, killing him instantly. The next morning, when the sun was up, Jael went out of the tent and saw that Sisera was dead. She took the peg from his head and gave it to Deborah, who used it as a trophy to commemorate their victory over the Canaanites. Then Jael went out of the tent and gave the news of Sisera's death to Deborah. The two of them then led the Israelites in celebrating their deliverance from their oppressors. After hearing this incredible story, you may have some questions or thoughts that you want to share with me. Please leave them in the comments section below. Let's take a closer look at what we have learned. Question No. 1. Who was Sisera? Sisera was the commander of the Canaanite army that oppressed the Israelites. He was a fierce warrior who led his troops in many battles against Israel. But despite his military prowess, he was eventually defeated by the Israelites under the leadership of Deborah and Barak. After the battle, Sisera fled for his life and ended up at the tent of Jael, where he was killed. Question No. 2. What was Sisera doing at the tent of Jael? Sisera came to the tent of Jael seeking refuge. He was exhausted from the battle and needed rest. Jael took pity on him and allowed him to sleep under the shade of her tent. However, Jael knew that God had delivered Sisera into her hands, and she took advantage of his slumber to kill him. Question number 3. Why did Jael kill Sisera? Jael killed Sisera because she was a woman of faith. She knew that God had given her the opportunity to deliver Israel from their oppressor. Taking no time at all, Jael grabbed a hammer and drove a tent peg into Sisera's temple, killing him instantly. His massive head probably cushioned the blow to her tent, and when the sun rose, she discovered that he was dead. Question No. 4. What did Jael use to kill Sisera? Jael used a tent peg as a weapon to kill Sisera. It was a simple tool that she likely used for everyday tasks, such as securing her tent, but she turned it into a deadly weapon. The story of Jael and Sisera reminds us that God can use anyone to accomplish his purposes. Jael was a humble woman who was not afraid to take action when the time came. Question no. 5. How does the story of Jael and Sisera demonstrate God's power? The story of Jael and Sisera demonstrates God's power in several ways. First, it shows that God can raise up unlikely heroes to accomplish his purposes. Jael was a simple tent maker, but God chose her to deliver Israel from their oppressors. Second, it illustrates that God can use ordinary objects to accomplish extraordinary things. A tent peg was a common tool, but God used it to bring about the death of a mighty warrior. Finally, it reveals that God is in control of the battle. Despite Sisera's military prowess, he was defeated and killed, and his death brought deliverance to the Israelites. The account of Jael killing Sisera with a tent peg is a remarkable story that teaches us several important lessons. First, it shows that God can use anyone to accomplish his purposes, regardless of their social status or occupation. Jael was a lowly tent maker, but God chose her to deliver Israel from their oppressors. Second, it illustrates that God can use ordinary means to accomplish extraordinary ends. A tent peg was a simple object, but God used it to bring about the death of a mighty warrior. Third, it reminds us that God is in control of the battle. Sisera was a skilled warrior, but he was ultimately defeated and killed, and his death brought deliverance to the Israelites. Fourth, it teaches us the importance of courage and faith. Jael was not afraid to take action when the time came, and her faith in God gave her the strength to do what was necessary. Finally, it shows that God's timing is perfect. Jael waited until Sisera was sleeping before taking her action, and this ensured that she would not be harmed. The story of Jael killing Sisera with a tent peg is a powerful reminder of God's ability to use ordinary people and circumstances to accomplish his purposes. It is also a celebration of the courage and faith of a woman who was willing to do what was necessary to deliver her people from oppression. As we close this video, let us remember that God is in control of our lives and that He can use us in ways we never imagined. Let us also remember that courage and faith are essential qualities that we need to develop if we want to be used by God. May the story of Jael inspire us to be brave and faithful in the face of adversity. Before we go, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the story of Jael and Sisera? What lessons do you think we can learn from it? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more stories like it, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so that you will be notified when I post new videos. You can also support me by becoming a member. With that, I thank you for watching and encourage you to tune in for more videos.